Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine.
Joe. Little fucking Joe Lindsley.
Joe Lindsley is quickly becoming an American treasure in broadcasting.
Welcome to Ukraine.
Ukraine has sunk or disabled a third of all Russian warships in the Black Sea now in just over 2 years of war. Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley. Joe, the successful Ukrainian drone and missile strikes and what their ships have done, I would think this would be a major morale boost there. Are you feeling it?
It is indeed, Bob, and hello from LVIV. I'm glad you mentioned this topic because, two more Russian ships were heavily damaged or possibly totally destroyed over the weekend. And that news, I intended to report that news yesterday, but instead, we were talking about the concert, that terrorist attack or whatever it was in Moscow. And so this is something that happens pretty often. When there's good news from Ukraine, the Russians are pretty good at trying to obscure that news. But I think it was on Sunday, the Ukrainians used, in the middle of this very intense weekend, when, the city of Kharkiv, Dnipro, and other places were without power, without water because of these horrible and massive Russian attacks on infrastructure, Ukrainians were not simply standing by, and they had a big operation in the Crimean peninsula, which the Russians have occupied since 2014. And Ukrainians used Storm Shadow missiles from the United Kingdom, which, unlike the United States, the UK gives Ukraine long-range weapons and lets them use them however they wish to, with really no restrictions. And so they use those to hit key Russian military assets on the Crimean Peninsula, on the coast. And with the combination of sea drones, they were able to cause significant damage to two major Russian ships, including a ship that used to be Ukrainian. But when the Russians took the Crimean Peninsula in 2014, they kept the ship. And so this is yet another big success. And we've seen a pattern of about once every 2 weeks in the past months, the past 3 or 4 months, Ukrainians methodically taking apart the Russian Navy. So this is good news because, Russia increasingly has had to move its naval assets away from Sevastopol, which is the biggest city in Crimea and the biggest harbor, to other places, sort of on the eastern side of the peninsula. That's where this attack happened. But the Russians are also, it seems, about to finish construction of a naval base in the small country of Georgia, but they've occupied portions of that country since the 1990s, and they're building a base there that's much further away from Ukraine. So the Ukrainians have the Russians on the run in the Black Sea, so to speak. Meanwhile, as we speak at this moment, I've just arrived in Lviv. I took a 7-hour train from Kyiv. Always peaceful to be on the train. Not great internet connection. You can tune out of the news for a while. But over the weekend, I've been hearing there's a heavy sense that something wicked this way comes. Some sources saying that everyone should be expecting something especially malicious from Russia very soon. And right as we were going on the air here to speak with you, we have a report as of 15 minutes ago. 6 Russian bombers have taken off from a Russian air base. Almost every single time that happens, there will be a major attack within a few hours.
Yeah, it's scary, and Ukraine continues to be undermanned and outgunned. On the positive side here today, Joseph, in the Chicago Sun-Times headline of a story, Chicago's Ukrainian community can't get enough of this new Lincoln Park Cafe. Soloway Coffee is run by a couple who have a cafe chain, Karma Kava, in their hometown of Ternopil, Ukraine. They opened up here. It's been very successful, and Ukrainian Americans are reported to be visiting the cafe here from Wisconsin, Connecticut, and New York, other places, some driving 5 or 6 hours to refresh their memories of home in Ukraine. And, of course, here in the Chicago area, we're home to the second largest Ukrainian American population in the country, about 54,000 people identifying as having Ukrainian ancestry. So this is a nice story and a reminder of how strong that Ukraine spirit is, even in displaced Ukrainians, Joe.
Well, yeah, and if you have the chance to visit, I mean, Ukrainians love coffee. I mean, here I just arrived in Lviv, which is a city of cobbled streets and coffee houses, very different from the rest of the country. But even I think we could do a whole series on Ukrainian coffee shops in the time of war, because there's a little coffee stand in the city of Nikopol, which is a city that the Russians have shelled day and night for 21 months now. And there's a couple girls that run this shop there. They don't run away. In Donbass, near the front, in the little city, there's a young woman in her 20s who works for a small coffee chain in eastern Ukraine, and she is from this little town, and she refuses to leave. She stays there to serve coffee to soldiers and to volunteers and to medics. Temporarily, that coffee shop is closed because she received a concussion from a recent artillery strike. So while she's recovering, that coffee shop is closed. But then, as we saw in Kyiv just a few days ago and in Kharkiv, even with shattered glass, with their broken windows and debris everywhere, Ukrainians keep serving nice, good quality coffee, cappuccinos and Chemex and all that. So if you have the chance to go to that shop in Chicago, you can feel a little bit of the Ukrainian experience.
Yeah, that's at 2275 North Lincoln Avenue, and the couple behind it, Arthur and Irina Yazvik, and they're expanding. They're offering sandwiches, and by the way, Ukrainian American chefs have brought new attention to the cuisine of Ukraine around here at spots like Anelia in Avondale and Pierogi Kitchen in Bucktown. We're keeping a list here for when the war ends successfully, we hope, and you come to Chicago, Joseph. We're going to take you to all these places so you don't miss Ukraine.
I can't wait. And I looked at Anelia, I think it was Anelia's menu. Their take on borscht looks fantastic, and the vareniki, the dumplings with mushrooms, everything's sort of fresh and local, but Ukrainian style. So I look forward to that day very much.
Yeah, wouldn't it be wonderful to celebrate a victory in Ukraine that way, Joseph? Thank you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Unfortunately, tomorrow I'm sure we'll have news about this difficult situation we face in the coming hours. But until tomorrow.
Yeah, it sounds like that. We hope you stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Що він сказав?
Well, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні?